Hello and welcome. I'm Sunny, founder of Pura Vida Healing Arts. Today I wanted to talk on the topic of soulmates, twin flames, and karmic partners. Soulmates is something that I think can often get confused with twin flames. We have many soulmates, and these are other souls who have the same or very similar makeup as our own soul. And we have all chosen to essentially work through our karma and our life missions, our soul lessons back through ascension together. And when I think of soul family, I think in terms of if I were to look at a set of singing bowls, whether it's a set of crystal bowls or a set of Tibetan bowls, whatever set it is, they are made of the same basic elements. If it were crystal bowls, it would be quartz. And yet they come in different sizes, and that holds a different tone, but they all have like a core resonance because they're made of that quartz. And therefore, if I were to activate and play one, it begins to resonate in the others. And so this is how I think of soul family, is that we have a core principle makeup that is the same, and yet we have our own signature frequency and vibration. But because we do have that, we stay attracted into each other. We're in the same field. Law of attraction, law of vibration causes us to stay pretty close to one another through incarnations, just based on those laws of the universe and physics. And as souls, we have chosen to help each other through these incarnations to achieve these soul lessons of liberation, which usually require karmic clearing. And that is why soulmates are not always someone that we would expect. They're people that we learn very deep life lessons with. And sometimes they can be your enemies. And sometimes they can be your best friend. They could be a partner. They could be a parent. You don't necessarily have to have a great relationship, but there's like a known magnetism and attraction that brings you together, and you feel the familiarity, and it's transformational in your life. These people are big parts of the transformational processes that we go through. And typically you will see this with parents, children, family members, and also your romantic relationships, partnerships, businesses. So soulmates, there are many of them. And twin flames gets confused often. Those two, I think, can get confused for one another. The idea behind the twin flame dynamic is that our soul has been split into two bodies, and that the journey is to merge and reunite. So I've been on my own twin flame journey. I'm going to share a little bit about that and how that has changed my belief system around what the norm is, the normal belief of what a twin flame is. And I'll get to that shortly. With the twin flames, it's notable that they're big karmic partners, that they trigger all of your stuff because it is to create union. It is to move you through your ascension process, clearing all of that karma so that you can be liberated and move beyond into the next realm of consciousness, the next dimension. And karmic partners. So karmic partners, a lot of the time, like I mentioned, it can be the soul family that helps you to do that. And then you have other beings who are contracted to help you with really specific karmic clearing. because they might be tied to it. It might have been, let's just say, someone that you had murdered in a past life, and then in this life you now have to rectify that debt. And maybe you've been going through lifetimes of back and forth of misjudgment or misuse of will, and creating that karmic cycle that binds you into these lower dimensions and this lower way of being and acting. And that's like a really really severe example, but it's out there. It's something that I think that we've all encountered at one point in time. So let me share a little bit about my experience and where I've come to, and what I now have, what I believe about this twin flame dynamic, and how the whole belief system that's set up around it can actually keep you bound and prevent you from the ultimate process, which is to be liberated, to allow our consciousness to ascend. And when we box ourselves in with ideas of what something or someone is or should be, or what that means for us, and how we're supposed to, what that's supposed to mean for our life, it can distort and limit reality. It can limit our ability to transcend whatever is present for our current life lessons and ascension process. So several years ago, I went through my dark night of the soul, and at that point in time, I had a 6-month-old daughter. I guess she was about 8 to 9 months old at that point in time. I was married. It was a very toxic, abusive relationship, and it was one that I'd never been willing to see all of the red flags. But when my daughter was 6 months old, I was fortunate enough to go through yoga teacher training, which introduced me to meditation. I was already practicing Reiki and natural healing at that point in time, but the meditation, the self-reflection, self-realization, and surrender was what was necessary for me to allow the process, to let go, to face my trauma that was causing me to stay locked into this relationship, who was a soulmate and a major karmic partner. And this induced this dark night of the soul, where I went through divorce and, living in a city where I had no family and very limited friends, and single parenting, divorce in the South. There's so many things that we have to, quote unquote, worry about from that decision. And it was one of the toughest times in my life. I mean, the dark night of the soul, that is what that is the valley of the shadow of death. And there were so many things in me that had to die in order for the authentic self to live, for my soul to be more embodied and to live its truest expression. So once I allowed that process, and meditation and Reiki being so vital in that, I started to awaken, and more each day, and until I hit this like spurt. Everything was so good in my life, this new found sense of freedom and confidence and meaning and purpose and synchronicity. And I started learning about twin flames, and identified my ex-husband as being my false twin flame, and it all made so much sense, and started to call in my twin flame. And I can even remember the moment when I knew that I had made contact with that person in this life, and it wasn't shortly after that they came into my dream on a full moon, found me the next day on Facebook, and we reconnected someone I hadn't talked to in many, many years. And I did the twin flame journey. And it was all of the things. It was the synchronicities that you only see in movies, and unbelievable experiences, and the overwhelming feelings of love and gratitude and magic. It's magic, right? Also, coupled with the intense triggers, to the point where I would have panic attacks. I was having things happen that hadn't happened in years or never had happened in my life. There were beautiful points. There were really challenging points. We definitely hit all of each other's buttons, but there was always an underlying love. And at one point, I decided that I needed to review all of the constructs that I placed myself in, including the relationships that I had. What expectations did I have on them? Were they based in fact? Were they based in experience? Were they based in truth? And what I came to realize with this particular relationship, because it, as good as it got and then as difficult as it got, it came to a point where there was an obvious change in trajectory for both of us. And it was very clear that we were on different paths, different frequencies. So there was very little communication happening at that time. And when I started to investigate what twin flames really means, I had to face the fact that, or face the possible reality that, what if twin flames aren't what they say they are? What if this isn't your soul in another body? And to even think about that, there was like the cognitive dissonance that was like, no, that can't be true. You know that's not true. But by limiting myself and not even entertaining the possibility of it, I was closing myself off to the truth. And so what came forward for me in that process was to surrender to whatever divine will was. And I just asked, show me what is true. And I began to open to that possibility. And as I opened to that possibility, I met my fear. I met my fear of being alone. I met my fear of being a single parent again. I met my fears of being incomplete. And I allowed that to have its process, to have the space to be in that. And I realized that I had to separate myself from this situation, that that is not what the divine was wanting for me. The divine wanted me to honor both of us, and knowing that our growth was limited as long as we were together. And so one night in prayer, I just asked God, or rather I told God, I said, I surrender. I accept what this is, and if I am to be alone, I accept that. I trust you. And if I am to be with someone else, show me. And this was the same night that I had broken it off and had finalized that we could no longer be in relationship. Just a few days later, I had a class, and in that class we do very deep meditation. In that meditation, I was given a vision and a download, an understanding of the soul anatomy, and specific to twin flames and soulmates, karmic partners. What I was shown is that the soul does not split off into another body. Our soul at time can have fractures that we are retrieving from different timelines and dimensions, but the soul cannot incarnate into a separate body. It cannot have a separate chakra system. Your chakra system is your soul. But what we do, because in this dimension, we live in duality. This is a realm of duality, and that duality allows us to see what is inside of us and also what is lacking. It is a mirror, and I'm sure that many of you have heard this by now. And in this mirror process, we are able to love ourselves through being able to find love in someone else. At some point, this is part of the priming to come back into being in love with ourselves, knowing love as ourselves. And it's also the way that we are able to love the things that we don't like about ourselves, the hidden, the shadow. This is where the twin flame template comes in. That because the soul does not split into two bodies, there is this manifestation that we can place like a projection, right? Everything is a projection of our consciousness, a co-creative manifestation. Because our soulmates have such a similar makeup, we've come here to do work with one another, to help one another and assist one another in ascension and awakening, particularly at this point in time. We have the ability, as we are traveling from third dimension into fifth dimension and higher, to project this, what we would call a twin flame template, onto a soulmate. And that template just being a negative image of ourself. That's why we would call it the other half. That's why there's so many similarities, as if we are the same person, but not, but also trigger everything. So this soulmate, which is their own soul, carries a template. It's like they wear like a dressing over them. And that's what we would call the twin flame template. So it's not that it's a separate soul. They are their own soul. They are a part of our soul family, which is why it feels so intense, so familiar. All the karma, all the synchronicities, is because they are a part of our soul family. And at a certain level of consciousness, as we're jumping from 3D into 5D and higher, you may have the opportunity to project that archetype, that template, onto a soulmate so that you can fully merge through the heart field and raise the consciousness into 5D. And this is a very big thing right now, because this is part of what we are seeing. This is the Aquarian age. This is the pole shifting in the earth. All of this is a shift of dimension and perspective. So we see this awakening and a lot of talk around twin flames. This, in my experience, is actually what the twin flames are. They are your number one karmic partner, and they are one of your soulmates. The point of the whole process of being here, of helping each other as soulmates, is in ascension. The point is to merge within ourself, to merge all of the shadows with the light, all of the fractured parts of the psyche that we project onto other people. It is to merge the divine within us, not to merge one half of your soul that's in some other body into your soul. It is so that there is that inner unification. And so this sometimes is why soulmates or twin flames don't end up together. And this can be why twin flames, that the idea of that can limit your acceleration in this process. It can limit your growth for both of you, because for me, I was like, oh, I've got to stay with this person because they're my twin flame. I'm going to make it work. I've got to do this. They're my twin flame. So I was using that as my belief, and because I built our life around that, I couldn't be open to all of the possibilities that the universe wanted to offer through my own personal evolution, through their own personal evolution. If I say they are this, I limit them. The interesting thing to close out my story is that the next person that came into my life has been one of the most kind, patient, beautiful, loving individuals, far greater than anything I could have boxed into a twin flame dynamic. And it's the perfect partner for me in this life. And yet I don't feel at any point that I ever need anyone outside of myself. And I'm still in my own evolutionary process. I'm still recovering my light. I'm still recovering pieces of my soul. But yet there is a unification inside of me that no longer needs to project onto anyone else something that I feel is lacking. So I hope that this offers perspective and clarity, and it's not to say that what people call twin flames can't be together, because they're soulmates. So they would make great partners, and they often do. It's just to say, what would happen if you deconstructed the meaning of these things? Does it put you in a box? Does it limit you and that person? Do you, actually kind of bypass some of your own fears and facing those fears by subscribing to any belief, but particularly the ones around twin flames and soulmates? So I'd love to hear feedback. I'd love to hear stories. If you don't agree, I totally get it. This can be really triggering, and it can be hard to look at from this perspective. This is just my truth. This is what I have observed and what I have come to understand, and I would love to hear about other people's stories and perspectives. And if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, and if you don't, let me know why in the comments. Subscribe if you want to catch some more, and thank you for joining and sharing in this space, in this conversation. Pura vida.